Hi there, I hope you're okay. It's Michael here, and welcome to 5 Minute Focus. 5 Minute Focus is all about helping writers and creatives to be more creative, to focus more effectively, and get more done. Today, I would like to talk to you about brain dumps and why they are so beneficial and so useful. There are two brain dumps that we're going to go through. The first one is quite a general brain dump, and the second one is super specific, but we're going to get to that in a minute. Before we get to that, I would like to talk to you briefly about why they are such a useful tool for you as a creative writer. We all have thoughts and feelings running around our mind at 100 miles an hour, to the point that it can become quite overwhelming, and a lot of that stuff just gets lost. That thought crosses your mind and then it's gone again. And that can be quite overwhelming. It can lead to problems further down the line because problems get compounded because you can't quite view your situation objectively enough. A brain dump also acts as quite a bit of a release. On an emotional level, it's a big release. You get everything you've got in your head exactly as it is in your head, and you get it down on paper. That feels wonderful. It is empowering. It makes you feel lighter. It makes you feel good. Those are some of the benefits of a brain dump, but there are other things to consider as well. A brain dump will help you to process your thoughts so that you can actually make sense of them. And it will also help you with things like closure. So you have come to the end of an issue, a problem, a situation, and it's all done with, but on an emotional level, you haven't quite got closure yet. Well, doing the brain dump can really help with that, because once you got it all out of your head and onto the paper, you can then view it back and get yourself that measure of closure. And it is so powerful. It is such a wonderful tool, and I think more people, if not everybody, should do it. The first brain dump I'd like to share with you is a very general one. It's something you do at the end of your day. At the end of your day, you set yourself a timer. Personally, I go for 10 or 15 minutes, but if I'm feeling particularly stressed or overwhelmed, then I go for 25 to 30 minutes. But an average day, when I'm feeling fine and so on, 10 to 15 minutes is more than enough normally. And for the actual process of the brain dump itself, I find it really helpful if you have an infinitely repeating sequence. An infinitely repeating sequence is just a sequence of things that doesn't end. So I personally just use numbers. I spell them out. I write them out. For your brain dump, you set that timer. You open your pad or paper and you put pen to paper. And you do not lift that pen off the paper for the duration of your session. So whether it's 10 to 15 minutes, whatever it may be. And in that time, you write everything, every thought, every feeling, everything that is in your head. You write it down on that piece of paper. It doesn't matter if it makes sense at all. Don't try and edit it as you go. You just blurt it out and you get it on that paper and you get it down there unfiltered. And that is important. However, when you first sit down, because you've just set the time, you've opened the book and so on, you'll have a set of expectations like, right, I've got to write now for 15 minutes without stopping, which is where the infinitely repeating sequence comes. So I use numbers. I have a friend of mine who uses colours. He just goes through them, and then when he gets to the end of his list of colours of the rainbow, he then goes back to the beginning and so on. But I like the numbers because there is no end. You can just keep going. That works better for me. But your sequence, it doesn't really matter what it is. It could be utter gibberish. It doesn't matter. Just pick something so that as soon as you press start on that timer, you can start writing. So you're 1, 2, 3, and so on. And then every time a thought, feeling, whatever comes into your head, you get it down. And then you go back to your sequence. And then the next thought comes through and you get it down. I find this really helpful. The sequence really helpful to get things going because it takes the pressure off it in a way, because you're already writing, so you haven't got to think of something to write. There have been times where I have just written a sequence of numbers for 15 minutes, but at the same time, it's still quite a release. You've done it and so on. So That's the general brain dump. You do that every day at the end of your day. You get it all down. Don't look at it today. You need to create a little bit of separation between doing it and then reviewing it. So look at it tomorrow morning would be ideal. So that's the general one. But the other brain dump is much more specific. So you're about to sit down and do some more writing for your next creative piece. But there's so much going on up there. Not just about the work ahead of you, but, you know, life and so on as well. You need to descramble it and make sense of it. Which is why I have this very specific brain dump. And you do this with an hour or so before you start the task. The actual amount of time before you start the task is irrelevant, just as long as there's some separation between that brain dump, the review process, and then doing the task. This time, you want to set a timer, again, same again, 10-15 minutes, and you have your sequence. But this time, the only things that you're going to write down in your sequence are thoughts and feelings relating to the task that you're about to engage in. You get it all out, and then when the timer rings, you go off and do something else. I personally like to do something autonomous, washing up, or like a coffee, or whatever it may be. Something that requires zero thought. And then you can come back and you can look at what you've written down in this brain dump. And then you can start to see the patterns form, and you can create separation between thoughts about the work that you're about to engage in and feelings about the actual sitting down to write. You know, all the, I don't think I can do this, I'm not a good writer, I'm a whatever, all of that, right? You need to separate that from the actual thoughts that are directly linked to your writing process, which is really, really helpful. So that when you actually then engage in the work and you sit down and you start writing, you are able to see clearly in front of you a train of thought that is going to be helpful and useful to you to help you get that project done, to help you do the writing, whatever it may be, to tell your story. So implement these things, these two different types of brain dump, and then come back here and you jump in the comments and you let me know how you've got on.